Now that we've covered the issue about the pressure on the inside of the feet and what effects that has, and clarified that it's the body weight people are using that have these restrictive and guarded postures, the body weight they're using to supply the pressure into those widely spread feet that they're resting into, that gives them the stability that they can at least partially relax into. And this is another point about why people with these problem movements and postures are able to fool you when they're standing there. By that I mean they can be standing there with their feet apart like this and just resting and look like they're pretty relaxed. But indeed, they're not as relaxed as you would fear. If you look, there's often a little bit of movement in their posture this way, and or they are very stoically still. And typically they will be this way, back here on their heels, resting on that inside pressure. Very easy to tip one way or the other, especially backwards with them. And when they begin to move, that's the other big issue, is they have a great deal of difficulty coming off of that inside foot pressure with confidence to then enter into the movements, to then even enter into moving from one spot to the other spot. So we, I think it was back in the videos with the second stance that I was talking about, introduced the concept of weight shifting by pushing into one foot and allowing your body to move into that pressure, and or bending a knee to do that exact same thing. Now let's put that with the statement I just made that people living with this wide-based stance have difficulty moving onto one foot to be able to move to a different spot on the floor. Well, if they have their feet this far apart, for example, and they want to move on to one foot to then move to another spot, ideally they need to move their body weight and center it onto that one foot to be able to balance on that one foot, to be able to move this other foot over to where it needs to be and then transfer onto that foot. Well, the difficulty is in not only that they have to overcome that pressure on the inside of their feet that's pushing them the opposite way, they also need to go a great distance. Now, to center on this foot, or I should say, to center the pressure into this foot, I need to come way over here to be able to lift that foot off the floor. Now, that's a long distance, and I also flex this knee down, and my shoulders are over here quite a bit because they're counterbalancing that leg sticking out way over there. And you can see I was still not quite on that flattened foot. I didn't quite have that pressure in the middle. Okay, now let's say you're here. And this is a pretty normal stance for anybody. But to move over and do the exact same thing, center that pressure in this foot, I only need to move here. Now notice this time I didn't flex my knee any more than what it might have been there. I can do it with my knees flexed a little bit, or I can do it with my knees actually straight. And still, I can keep both feet on the floor and, oh, towards the inside there, so I need to come over a little bit more. There we go, that's a little bit better. So not quite as far, and I don't have to use these knees unless I want to. And if I have the ability, I'm going to be doing that anyway, depending on what activity I'm involved with. I should qualify that with. Okay, now if I have this stance here, feet pretty close together, how far do I need to move over with my body to center the pressure of this one foot? Boom. Not very much. It's right there. So the further apart your feet are, the more you have to move your body over to the side to center the pressure in that foot. Now, that's common sense to anybody. Of course, you have to do that. But to those people with these movement problems, especially with the restricted, guarded, and or stiffened posture, it's a great big deal, because here with that pressure pushing you over here this way, and they're stiff. Now, this is a problem getting over here. And as you people playing with this, when you first start to do this, you're going to be using your shoulders to do this transfer. And what's going to happen when you transfer this pressure with just your shoulders? See, I'm doing that, but now look at that foot over there. The heel is coming up, and I'll do it just catty corner here at an angle to do the same thing, feet wide apart, and just my shoulders. Notice that I'm flexing that foot to be able to keep my toes in contact with that floor while I'm over here. My shoulders coming over here. Now, with a restricted posture, people are not going to be doing that. With a guarded posture, yeah, they can do that, but it's still precarious for them. But with that guarded posture, they're coming over here, and that leg is bringing that stiffened foot up off the floor. Now, if they're not common sense here, if they're moving their shoulders over and this is coming off the floor and they're trying to balance on this one foot with this stiffened posture, what do you think is going to be the result? Boom. It's very quickly that they overdo it. They overshift onto the outside of the foot, and boom. And there's nothing there to save them, except hopefully they're doing it next to a wall. And for those of you with a restricted posture, please, if you have a hallway with a blank wall at the end and corners on each side, then do practice this there, because as you go from side to side, there's a wall on each side. Plus, many of you are going to be on your heels, so there's a wall behind you. The next best thing is to work on this in one direction where there is the wall to that side, and get fairly close to where maybe a couple feet away from it, where when you come over, you have a little bit of leeway where you can move without touching the wall, but it's not so far away that it will catch you when you overdo it, because that is going to be your lifeline. Once you learn that you can depend on that wall being there, then you're going to be able to relax a little bit more to focus on getting these knees flexed, controlling that pressure a little bit, relaxing arms and shoulders, so you're able to move this body as a unit with the pressure pushing down in that foot to center that foot, or correction, to center that pressure in that foot. Now, remember what we talked about before about how you can tell when you're on this flattened foot. Well, one, it's the stability that you feel. Two, it's when I'm there over that flattened foot, I can raise the other foot off the floor and I'm okay when you have the better ability. Now, when you don't, it's okay, you're touching against something lately and you're doing the same thing. When can I get these toes off the floor and stay there? Controlling the movement of that pressure through that short width of our foot is the key. And that's why in the beginning, I'm having you just push down into that foot, because then you're limiting your body movement along with that. You're learning how to control the body and to relax it and to allow it to move as a unit. It's important for you to feel that, because the next part is moving with a flexing foot. It's moving with just doing nothing here with this leg, relaxing into that posture as you were before. And you can have your feet wider apart if you need them, because this gives you that security of that inside pressure and allows you to relax a little bit more. It's fine. Have your feet where they feel comfortable for you when you start this, and then gradually narrow that as you gain better control. But keep safe, be common sense wise, and you'll be fine. So what we want to do here is, just as we started covering back in the second stance, getting you prepared for this and the fourth stance, is if you just lift that heel of one foot, your body moves over to this foot. How high do you lift the heel? Well, you want to lift it until this pressure is centered in this foot. How do you know it's centered in that foot? Well, again, you feel it, feel that stability. Two, you can be looking into a mirror to see where your body alignment is. Remember, toe, knee, nipple line area, for that pressure to be centered there in that foot. Now here I'm keeping pressure in that foot, and you should too. Why? Because it gives you added control. In our natural movements, especially those people that are just refined in their movements, they're doing all these elegant poses, and the professional dancers and the whole bit, whenever they can, they're keeping both feet in contact with the floor. Some part of both feet in contact with the floor at all times, whenever they can, to be able to have that control. Because this foot is pushing the body over here. This is your main supporting foot. But that foot over there is important in that it not only pushes you here, but it also holds you here. Believe it or not, it's keeping you from pushing too far that way, and it's keeping you from, of course, moving back this way. So what you're working on here is, with this pressure on the inside of your feet with this wider base stance, when you do this, just as I'm doing here, notice that I'm not coming onto the center of this foot. And those people with this garden stiffened posture should not be doing that at first either, because it's so easy with your feet a little bit closer to lift that heel and boom, over you go, because you can't control, or you're not controlling, I should say, how quickly you bring the heel up. Because of that stiffness and the guarding in those muscles, you get the overreaction. Start it with your feet wide apart. And I want you to feel as you're relaxing into that, and now as you're lifting that heel, your body moves over, but as soon as you relax it, boom, you come back, because you're pushing against this posture on the inside of your foot. That pressure is still there, so anytime you relax, you go right back to where you were before. Your body stops here in the center, which is great. Now, what else do you need to consider? Remember, front to back. You need to have that pressure in the center of the foot from the heel to the ball toe area. You need to get it centered there, so you need to bring these shoulders forward, get in this ready stance for those of you that have a problem staying there. The others, you can stay straighter up, but you need to keep that pressure further forward than back here on your heels. Now, those of you that have better movement ability, you're going to be on the ball area of the foot predominantly. You'll be about, let's say, 65, 75% of your weight and pressure is going to be in the ball area, and the rest in the heel area. And that's okay, because what we're doing is pushing down into the ball and toe area of this left foot in this case, pushing it, that pressure in there, and that lifts the heel, and the heel lift is extending our leg. It's extending the length of our leg. Watch it. And that is pushing our body over. So the only push that you're doing here actually is pushing more pressure into the floor with the ball and toe area. And the heel comes up, and that heel lift is pushing your body over. And notice where I'm stopping here. Let me get squared up here and just, I think I was off just a little bit. And notice that my body stops way short of the center of this foot. Now, what can I do to allow this setup right here? What can I do with my posture to allow me to get more centered on this foot? Bend your knee. I went further over. Watch it again. Here in the middle, I'm upright. I push over, that heel's up, bend this knee, watch my body move that way. Coming back, all I have to do is relax that pressure and I move back, but I have to help it a little bit when that knee is still flexed because I don't have as much pressure on the inside of that foot. In fact, now it's pretty flat over here. So if I just relax that foot, I stay here. So there are two things I can do. One, I'm pushing pressure in this foot to move my body back, or I can straighten this knee, comes back on that inside foot pressure, and relax that heel. Boom, I'm over here again. Now, just in case I was obscuring part of that, let me do it again, standing at this diagonal. So I'm standing straight. I lift that heel. Now I bend this knee and move over further. Straighten the knee, I come back. I relax that heel, and boom, I come back. It's not that difficult, except those of you with the restrictive and the guarding posture, you're going to overdo this heel lift because for many of you, it's going to be something new, something that you haven't been doing or you have been doing when you didn't realize it. But now that you're working with it and trying to overcome all this imbalance stuff, now it's going to be often, it'll be jerky movement. It'll be overdone, easily overdone. You'll try too hard many times. Ease into it. That's why you start wide apart so you can feel with it. So even when you do a jerky, you don't go off the inside of that pressure. And there again, practice it when the wall is next to you and something's behind you, because many of you will be back here with your shoulders, and then when you do this, back you go to that corner and you fall. So use some common sense for that. So what we're doing here is starting to transfer our body weight onto this foot with just the pressure from the ball area. And here again, it's just the heel lift. The closer you are with your feet together, the less effort you need to make here. And here, I'm just barely pushing pressure in there. You can focus on just lifting the heel, or you can focus on putting pressure down into the ball area of your foot, letting your heel come up. You're doing the same thing in either one most of the time. But if you have this pressure back here in your heels and you're trying to do the heel lift, you won't have much success because then you're not pushing down the ball area of your foot. Bring those shoulders forward and starting with a little bit of extra pressure on the ball rather than the heel. Now it's going to work the way it's supposed to work because there's already a little added pressure in that ball area. And now just a little bit of heel lift. You have a lot of movement with these shoulders. So be careful with that and play with that. Feet wider apart. You can do this from side to side. Practice it. Get comfortable with it until it becomes very relaxing where you're back and forth this way. You can feel the inside pressure working into your favor, and you're having to overcome that with the push from the ball area with that heel lift, which is also good. Learning to tame those muscles on there and just relax them to get that relaxed postural control that you're seeking. Then when you come here, it's just very small, very light. It doesn't take much. Practice staying on the inside till you get more confident and you start moving over your center. And this is what I want you to practice also in trying to stand on one foot. Both ways, pushing down in the pressure to get stable with that, and then lifting this foot off the floor, and then pushing from the ball area, heel lift, doing the same thing. Now, what's the other common thing that goes with this? No matter which way you do that, what's the one common thing you have to remember? Increase pressure pushing down into both feet before you start, even up here. Because when you come over here, yes, body weight is there, but you also need to add pressure to that foot because now you're starting to stand on this one foot. You have all of your body being supported on that one foot, so you need added pressure down into that foot to stabilize this body up here. Think about a building. A tall building, you have a big foundation under it to support this building up here. Everything's just fine. But then let's say you like that building and you want to build it over there, but you don't have much land. You only have half as much land to build the same identical building. How are you going to support it with a foundation with less surface area? You have to go further down. You have to go deeper into the ground to get the same support because that tall building is going to have some movement up here. To stabilize that, you have to have the deeper into the ground when you have that less surface area. There's always a combination between the two. And the same thing is working here with your feet. Wider apart, your foundation is very wide and stable. So you don't have to put as much pressure down in one foot because you still have that other contact there distributed out through that bigger area and you're stable. But now when you come here, same thing with it, except there's less surface area. So yes, you do need more pressure down. And then when you have a narrower stance and you come over onto this one foot, you need a lot more pressure down because the surface area of your foundation just shrunk. So now the pressure going deeper is what you're depending on to stabilize you, just like that tall building. It's all common sense type stuff. This is why you have to get back the ability of pushing down into this foot, pushing down into this foot for all your movements, even for just standing here. So we transfer body weight onto one foot for this knee to be able then to lift the other foot, move that knee to move the foot, and then we do the same thing here and over again. We have to move this body as a unit to shift it, to shift our body weight to center it in that foot and add pressure down using both feet as much as we can in the process. A problem that people get into with these ataxic movements is they try to do this stuff using one foot. They don't know they're doing it, but that's why they're having so much extra problems. They're trying to steady on this one foot by not using this foot. They're just here. Plus, they're using their upper body trying to move it, and their control is greatly limited because instead of doing 2 feet, better foundation, they're trying to do it with just 1 foot, and they're already unstable to start with, so they're more unstable when they go through that movement. So it's over control, then under control, exaggerated movement, exaggerated response, no control. Okay, with all of that said, what do we want to practice on? Well, we want to be able to practice on just that, transferring one foot to move the other foot to just keep continuing it. The knee controls the foot. The foot does not control where it goes on the floor. The knee does. And more specifically, it's the pressure in this foot that you're using to push the body over that controls where that foot is going to go. The knee moves it as this foot pushes the body. This is where your attention goes. It's not to this foot of where it's going to go, because then your control of the movement is focusing on the foot that's supposed to be up in the air moving, but what is supporting you on the floor? This foot. So in all of your movements, the foot or the feet that you're using at that time, that's where your focus is. And when you're moving from one spot to the other spot, it's always the foot that's doing the pushing, the foot that's doing the supporting, until you can move on to this foot, and then the focus is there, because this one is about to come up. For example, here, this is my focus. I have to get this right for this to be right. Now, then, say there, come over here. The focus is always on the foot that you're using for support. So when you're being advised to place your foot and then move on to it, stop listening to that garbage, because that is not how we naturally do that unless we're doing something specific. There are exceptions to everything. But here, going sideways, you're not focusing on, well, put this foot over here and then move on to it and then bring this foot over. No. Look how awkward that is. When I'm over here, and then I move this foot over there, and then I'm bringing my body over here, and then I'm bringing this foot in. Much more simple. And it's going to be much more simplified when we start moving forward for the same concept. It's not the foot you're moving onto that you worry about where it's going to go. It's the foot you're using that's controlling the movement to where you want to go. And then this foot will be exactly where it's supposed to be, as long as you do what you're supposed to be doing on the foot that's controlling the movement, that's keeping the body stable through the movement. Provided it's doing the right thing, this is going to be exactly where it needs to be. And that, of course, is dependent on this posture staying relaxed and being cooperative. Forget about where the foot's going unless there's something special with the movement where you must do that. But even then, this still applies. You are stabilized here to then move that foot in different spots before you move your body weight onto it. Don't be misled. There are all kinds of thoughts and theories and assumptions on what we do in our natural movements. And many of them are wrong. Prove this stuff to yourself. Practice it. Become comfortable with it. Unlock the world, baby. Here we come. We're moving on.